Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do a quick comparison between three different ported guns. I do have several comped guns as well, but we're going to focus on ported guns and some advantages and disadvantages. And we're going to look at three different tiers and price ranges here of guns, and two of them striker fired, one hammer fired. And we're going to kind of talk about the pros and cons that go with that. And as you may well be aware, these YouTubers and gun tubers and reviewers on YouTube, they tend to talk a lot about how flat a gun is, and this is one of the flattest guns I've shot all year, or this is one of the flattest guns I've ever shot. But they don't really compare and talk about different guns at the same time to kind of give you an idea of what they're actually feeling or how they shoot compared to something else. So that's kind of what we're wanting to do today. And like I said, this is just ported. We have several comped guns, and maybe one day we'll do this on the comped guns and kind of give you kind of a verbal demonstration of how guns shoot differently based off how they're made, how they're ported, and such. So we want to kind of go into this, and I think these were three good picks to do that would kind of demonstrate kind of the differences between different guns being ported. Now, what we want to do before we get started is state that one thing I have found out when it comes to ported guns and non-ported guns is, say you got these three different tiers of guns, and this non-ported versus this non-ported, there's a bigger performance gap between this gun and this gun with non-ported barrels. So this gun would have a lot higher performance with a non-ported barrel to this one with a non-ported barrel over this one ported and this one ported. So the ports on this gun do even the playing field across this board, even though you will see slight performance gains in kind of the quality and the weight of the gun. You'll see slight performance gains to those aspects of those guns, but this does really draw the playing field closer together and actually give you some advantages. So let's go over some advantages and disadvantages to each gun and what they do better than the other. And that's kind of what we're wanting to do, and try not to go too deep and make this video boring, but I want to kind of give you a descriptive definition of what's going on here. Okay, this was ported by Mac Defense, and so was the Canik. They have the same type of ports. They're slightly differently gapped, I guess, or spaced in between the ports, but they were done by the same person at the same place, and so they're very similar, whereas this was done by Masterpiece Arms themselves in factory, V6 port. And so I kind of wanted to describe that before we get started. All right, so let's talk about the advantages to this gun ported over the other two. First off, one thing I will say is the advantage is, because this is the lowest bore axis gun, meaning that your hand is higher to the bore, closer to the bore than the other two. We all know that Caniks and Walthers are a little slightly higher in bore axis than a lot of other striker guns. But because this one is a higher bore axis, or lower bore axis, I should say. Sorry to correct that. It's a lower bore axis than the other two guns, because we know 1911s don't have the highest bore axis with this big beaver tail and the safety that's down here and the hammer that has to be come back, and that takes up room. Don't let your hand get quite as high. But this being the lowest bore axis, when it comes to muzzle flip, this is pretty much tied to either one of these other guns, or to this gun. And this one actually has, I would say this one probably has slightly more muzzle rise and muzzle flip, even though it's the heaviest gun, because of the bore axis and because it's hammer fired, and the way it's made mechanically, it has slightly more muzzle flip. And it could have to do too with the V6 ports not being quite as effective as these straight vertically up ported barrels. These barrels, they vent the gas straight up, so that really does help mitigate that barrel pushing up. It really wants to push straight down, which is great, because as soon as that thing wants to start rising in the hand, those gases are pushing down, and you can feel it reacting, kind of those forces counteracting one another. And so this is probably, like I said, just as flat as the Canik, and probably slightly flatter than the Masterpiece. And I better say this, go ahead and skip ahead a little bit and say that doesn't mean that this gun is softer to shoot than this one, and we'll talk about the differences. We're working on a device to figure out a way to show you guys on YouTube the amount of muzzle rise and the softness, measuring the softness and the muzzle rise with a device scientifically. We're working on trying to figure out some kind of contraption to do that, and it's mostly done. I just need time to actually go out and film it. But I'm just going to explain verbally. This is all about explaining verbally what you get with these guns. But yeah, these vertical ports really do help with muzzle flip. And like I said, this is just as flat as this one, and probably slightly flatter than this one. However, these two are both softer shooting than this one. and this one being probably the softest shooting, even though it has slightly more muzzle flip than the other two. But we'll get into that when we talk more about that specifically. All right, guys. So the advantages to this one is, well, number one, it's easier to carry. This is a lot lighter. This being about 42 ounces, this being 44 ounces. This one is right around 25 ounces, I think, unloaded with the magazine. So yeah, you get a whole lot lighter gun in this. So your ability to transition target to target is easier with this lightweight gun, guys. So I kind of wanted to explain that right off the bat. So that is your pro for sure. Definitely is a pro. The negative is, and like I said, another pro is the fact that this one shoots probably flatter, or as flat as either one of these high-end guns, or more expensive guns, I should say. And let's kind of explain where these are at too. You can buy this base gun for about $500. You can buy this base gun for about $1,000. You can buy this base gun for right around $3,000. So that's kind of your differences there. And I know we're bouncing around a little bit, and I'm sorry about that as far as on topics, but we're just kind of wanting to let you know all the info as it comes to my mind, and kind of share those things with you. But this one is easier to transition. It's easier to carry. The negatives to this ported gun would be the sensation you get, even though the gun shoots extremely soft, because it is lighter, you get a faster reciprocating slide, which is good for follow-up shots, even though you won't outrun the slides on this gun or this gun, either one. So none of these guns, your finger is going to outrun the slide, at least unless you're a grandmaster competition shooter. I don't think your finger is going to outrun the slide on any of these guns. So that's not necessarily a huge advantage, but the slide reciprocates faster on this gun as you shoot it. And that gives a little bit more of a violent recoil in a sense. It does the ports definitely soften the gun, and they reduce the muzzle flip considerably. The dot, if you hold the gun tight in your hands, if you've got a tight grip, the dot will never leave the window. As it rises up, the dot it never goes high enough to leave the window of your dot, which is what you want. And that's why you want a ported gun. So you're always on target, you're target focused, and you're always seeing that dot in the window. Okay, guys, that's kind of the advantage. And although this shoots much softer, even in the palm of your hand, the energy going into the palm of your hand straight back is softer with the ports. With this gun, comparing it to just these two, not compared to a non-ported barrel that's lightweight, but comparing it to these two, it does have slightly more violence in the way the slide is reciprocating. It almost is like a vibration. Like when you're going fast, it's just like, if I could show it to you visually, it's kind of like this. It's just like a vibration in the gun. And these two, because of their weight and the fact that they're ported, you don't get that as much. It's just a smoother experience. And so that is the negative to shooting this one ported compared to these two. Let's go on to the next one. If you have any questions about the CZ, P10C, about how it is or how it feels, let me know. Like I said, there is advantages to this lightweight gun, but I'm just kind of trying to show you the pros and the cons to having a lightweight ported gun versus a heavier gun or more expensive ported gun. Okay, guys? And like I said, we're wanting to keep this all in the ported category. All right, guys? So, the pros to the Canik. Well, there's a lot of pros to this one, and some of the pros to this one are some of the same pros you get with this one. And one of the pros I didn't mention with the CZ that I will mention with this one that goes along with this one and the CZ is you'd have no safety, which is definitely a pro to these. And I know that don't really have to do with the ports itself, but the fact that the gun don't have no safety can help in drawing the gun and getting it on target and shooting your shots faster as well, along with the ports. Okay, guys? So that's just a thought to think about. But anyway, talking about the ports again, let's go back to the ports. So this is probably, I would say, maybe slightly the flattest shooting gun, even though this one's very similar because of the lower bore axis than this one. Because of the weight of this one, this is definitely, I guess, the best balance of flatness and softness on the table here. So the gun shoots extremely flat, and it shoots extremely soft into the hand. So that's great, and I really do like that about this gun. It's a very good weight for competition, and it's even not so heavy that it can't be carried. Okay, guys? So because this is the weight it is and the way it is, it makes it very nice both in softness and flatness and how it shoots. Okay, so it doesn't transition quite as fast as this gun, but with it being 2 ounces lighter than this one, and being, I think, a little bit less weight. You see how this weight is reduced up here in the front, and this gun has a full dust cover. This has a little bit less weight on the front, and it's got the steel grip, because this is the Canik Rival S steel grip. it is balanced a little bit better in front. So you can transition slightly faster with the Canik than you can the Masterpiece, just slightly. So this probably has the best balance of muzzle rise and softness into the hand, because with this heavier slide, and this being a lighter slide, the lightest slide on the bunch, and this being a slightly heavier slide, this slide itself may be slightly heavier than the Masterpiece. I'm not sure. I'd have to weigh those. But this one does have a lighter weight on the front of the gun itself. So just kind of a thought. So transitions is better, but the slide itself being heavier, it makes it extremely soft. And usually heavy slides will make the gun shoot softer, but a lot of times they can give you a little bit more muzzle rise, and that's what these ports are really good for, kind of reducing that. Disadvantages to this one, kind of hard to say, because like I said, this gives you kind of a balance of both worlds in between these two guns. A little bit quicker transitions, no safety, has barely any muzzle flip, has very soft energy push in the hands. Because of the heavier slide, you have less of that vibration into the gun when it's sliding forward and back. The slide moves slower, so you stay more stable and steady on this particular gun over the CZ. But when it comes to shooting fast and moving fast and carrying a gun, it more than makes up for it in the weight, it being lightweight and in the transitions and things. Negatives to this one, it's kind of hard to say, like I said, any negatives to the Canik as far as I know. The negatives would be, compared to the other two, is that because this is a cheaper gun, I would say the most obvious negative would be is it doesn't quite, when you shoot this gun, $3,000 nice custom, I won't say custom, but pretty much hand fit 1911, you can tell that there's a smoothness to this. So this just doesn't have quite the smoothness in the springs and the fit from the slide to the frame. When you shoot a gun of high quality that's fit real tight, you can definitely tell. Now this is an extremely accurate gun, and I would say offhand, standing, I can shoot this gun just as accurate almost. At least if you're just doing a quick test, you would probably see very little difference in accuracy between this one and this one. And if you're shooting quick offhand, you probably would see that you would lose a little accuracy in this gun because it is lighter, it's harder to hold stable, and these two guns are a little easier to keep stable. So it's a little bit harder to keep stable because it's so lightweight. So also, the trigger on this one is good. I would say this is very good and this is great. I mean, that's how I rate it. And it just happens to be in this particular field of guns that it goes on price range. So this one being a really good trigger, this one being a great trigger, and this one being the best of the bunch. So it don't always work that way. Sometimes you might get a cheap gun with a better trigger than a more expensive gun, but in this case, it is based off the money that you spend on these guns. Okay, guys? But yeah, the cons of this one is you're just not going to get that elegant fit and finish that you get on this gun. And even when you're shooting at speed, you can tell when a gun has a good lockup, and that's going to go into the pros of this one. So I guess that ending with that with this gun, the kind of the con to it compared to this one, and the con to it compared to this one would simply be it's heavier, so you can't carry it and things like that. But going into the positives of this one will make that a positive to this one. This one is fit tighter, and it just makes the gun shoot so smooth. When that slide is moving back, it's like on glass, it's like on ball bearings, it's like on ice, just sliding back really smooth. There's hardly no hesitation. It's just, even the lockup is smooth. So when it comes out of the lockup, there's very little like grabbing there. It's just smooth. If you pull back at the smooth weight, it's kind of hard to do with human hands, but if you pull it back, straight back with the same weight, there's hardly any hesitation all the way back and all the way forward. It's just smooth all the way. And when you're shooting fast, you can feel that, especially once you've shot thousands and thousands of rounds, you notice those things. So the gun being so tight and well put together, that is definitely a pro. So yeah, this one, like I said, is probably just slightly more accurate than these two. Hard to say, and it really based off people's preference and how they like the grip and things, but it might be slightly more accurate than both of those. But like I say, in shooting offhand and shooting at speed, you're going to barely notice that, okay? So that's not as much of a pro. But yeah, just the fit and finish. And when you shoot this gun, you know it's a $3,000 gun. You shoot these guns, you don't get quite, this almost feels like a $2,000 gun. It's really close. But when you shoot this one, you do know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you're shooting an expensive, nice gun. You can just tell it by the way it shoots and the way it handles. Okay, guys? So extremely smooth. One of its pros would be also, which we've kind of mentioned it, but the amount of energy that goes back into the hand, even though this one has slightly more muzzle rise than the other two because of the V6 ports. And see, guys, I want to explain, when these gases are going off to the side as much as they are, and they are going up as well, but because the gases are going to the side, it's pressing down and into the barrel like this. That's how the gases are pressing. They're pressing both inward and down, whereas these ports are pressing straight down. So you can tell a difference, and I think these vertical ports do slightly better for the muzzle rise, which is the main reason you get ports. And I kind of wish that I could have went with, especially if this would have had a wider top and these were closed up, you know, it kind of like to had 6 ports in a line here on top, preferably over the V6 ports. That's just me, and some people may be different in the way they think on that, but I think I would have rather had 6 ports right here on top, and I think it would make a more major difference in making this more on par with the other two as far as muzzle flip. But I will say, and usually it's this way, I don't know if y'all know this, and that's one thing we're wanting to test in the future, but most of the time when a gun shoots flatter, it shoots less soft because the energy has to go somewhere. And, you know, it does change based off ports and comps and things like that can change that. So it can shoot softer and flatter. And it always is going to shoot softer and flatter with ports and comps. But usually, if you change the energy coming down on the gun, you're going to change the energy going back in the gun. So the fact that this has a little bit more muzzle rise means that the energy put into the hand feels more like a 22. It's extremely soft, the amount of energy that's pushed back into the hand. Okay, guys? So that is the pro on this one. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. The cons, this gun is heavier. It's more expensive. That is a con. It has slightly more muzzle rise than the other two. So I know we've repeated ourselves several times in this video, but I want to get the points across and really give you a good verbal demonstration and review of the difference in these tiers of price range ported guns. And let's give you one more look on the ports. Here's the ports on this one. Here's the ports on the Canik. And then to show you the ports, I will pull this back. You can see the V6 port on the Masterpiece. Okay, guys, I hope you like and enjoy this video. This takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of thought. So y'all please like and subscribe and leave comments if you have any questions. God bless and have a great day, guys.